Okay, great to see everyone. What a great month. What a great group. It's been just really, I think, powerful time. So not too many of us here right now, but it's been a really amazing month. So thanks to everyone for participating, and the rooms were just, I thought, really cranking. We've got a couple more days left. So, but yeah, no, I think it was really great, great intensive. Lots of changes happening. So would anyone like to just check in? It's great to see everyone. Yeah, questions, comments about the month, about practice in general. Love to hear any comments you have. Your questions, comments, they always help everyone else. They start a nice discussion. So please.
Corey, I have a follow-up question to a conversation we had last week about fainting.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it, and the way that I interpreted what you said is that when you're about to faint, it's almost like, or the monks fall asleep while meditating. It's almost like it's a breaker system that stops you from processing what's happening. Did I interpret that correctly?
Well, I do think that happens. Yes, but I think it can also just be, I think we shouldn't be playing too much with that. I think we should be careful with that. I think the environment of the monastery is set up so that all these crazy things can happen and you're okay. It's kind of set up that way, and you're buying into that. But I think for us, we should be careful. So I think always being medically smart and safe, all of that, but yeah, I think, lots of things could be happening, physical, medical, all that, I think, and we should look at all those and be clear. But sometimes you do have that where, like we hit some place, and some opening is wanting to happen, and the system just isn't, maybe it's too fast, or the system just isn't really ready to process it, and the system will shut down, or the person will just go to sleep, or I've had all those things happen, or yeah. So I think there can be that aspect. Yes. Would anyone else like to respond to that? So what Carolyn was saying was sometimes in the standing have you passed out, or have you almost passed out?
I've almost passed out, but it's also that happens sitting as well. So I think it has more to do with the process than it has to do with health.
Yes, right. I know what you mean. Yeah. Anybody have anything to say about that? Genro, you have any insight into that?
Not really. I don't know. I don't know. That's yeah, no, I mean, I've definitely felt that, like, freeze up kind of, and also yeah, it's a hard question. I don't know. Yeah, and I think probably more the sleepy for me. It'll just conk out sometimes.
Yep, I hear you. Yeah, I mean, let's keep an eye on it and see how it develops. But it may be some hiccup in there, in the system, that's some, blockage of some kind that's there that we all have, and it shows up that way. But yeah, I know it. I have seen a lot of people, in the meditation hall, just pass out in weird ways too. really weird, just gone. You know,
Could it possibly be, just a speculation that it could be connected to some kind of form of resistance? For example, when I used to meditate, in the earlier days of meditation, I'd get to a point where I just feel, I've talked about this before, but there would be nausea, and it seemed almost insufferable at the time, like I can't handle this anymore. And you just want to move. And there's other things too. It's like now, if the postures are getting really hard, I might not be dripping with sweat, but I'm getting really hot. So I always make sure I'm wearing something light when I come to one of the classes. But I'm wondering if it like fainting is one thing and getting hot is another, but could it all possibly be connected to a resistance mode of just your processing and it's mind connected, where the mind's going, I don't want to do this anymore. This is too much for me. What are you doing? And that, I just thought that may be a possibility.
I think that is and can be very much so exactly what you say. And yeah, and I think I'm real cautious to talk too much about passing out too much. I think it's good to be careful, medically, obviously get checked out. But yeah, I definitely have seen all of what you're talking about, Maureen. I think it's really true. Yep.
How long has it been going on for?
It just depends on like how intense, like almost every retreat, I am like Shinzen retreat, I would almost faint, mostly in the morning. And just sometimes standing, like when I know I'm getting like really close to something, it comes and goes.
Yeah.
But it's probably been ongoing for several years. So to me, the concept of just my body shutting down when I know mentally it's something I want is a bit of a twist.
Well, I was saying that I've been in meditation halls with people who they've been like maybe they're several years, they've been awake for 3 or 4 periods that whole time. They kind of, their whole system just is gone. They can't. So it's interesting. So anyway, weird stuff, interesting stuff, yeah, keep us posted, please. I think it's really interesting. And like I said, I passed out in the non-directed, their dirt marks, in the morning. Cool. Anyone else have a comment or a question about that or something else, please? Again, I think the questions are really helpful. Even basic questions.
I'll make another comment on that. And this is kind of a framework or language I've moved away from now, but it's what's coming to mind. So just from a like neurological human nervous system perspective, we have these like sympathetic and parasympathetic responses in our nervous system. And within that, sometimes it's talked about as like this window of tolerance of our nervous system on the top end and on the bottom end. And almost what seems like the opposite of the fainting response is something I've also experienced, where rather than, so if the fainting response is like this kind of parasympathetic, sort of hyperactive parasympathetic response of like flee, and kind of the ultimate flee of just like shutting down, checking out, I'm gone. On the other end, like sometimes, we can experience like, it's like a sudden jolt where I'm approaching some area that's been maybe outside what the system's familiar with. And then I think maybe this is what Dinryo was maybe referring to as well, but there'll be like almost like a snapback, like a jolt, like, nope. And then it's kind of like hyper alert and just coming back to just kind of right now, but it's like the high energy end. And I think part of what we're doing through practice is kind of widening that window of tolerance on both ends. And so, like Carolyn, you mentioned like being able to start to be more sensitive to when you're approaching that, like you're kind of within like 4% of it. And then just kind of like that's where you can kind of surf a little bit on either end. It's like that kind of challenge zone, and just kind of learning that, and then the system is becoming more sensitive and familiar with it. And then there's this like widening of that window in our system where it's like whole system is just kind of gaining a greater kind of like a wider range, a greater flexibility. Like, oh, I'm okay here. I'm okay here. And it's like just one aspect of what happens through like kind of consistent practice. That jolting back for me is sometimes it's like going into the fight mode in a way. Like, nope, I'm gonna fight with it, so I'm snapping back from it, rather than softening and relaxing into it. It's like a separating from it. No, I'm separating myself from it and kind of get on high alert. And there's on either end, there's somehow like a joining with it.
I definitely have that jolting effect sometimes too. So sounds familiar.
You're muted.
Oh, was I unmuted that whole time? Oh, But I'm wondering, because you kind of have a sense when it's going to come. You said it's when you want something, like you're driving down, you want it. Yes?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
It just comes.
Yeah, it's like when I'm at my most relaxed and most uninhibited. Like it's really, yeah, I'm not looking for it. It just like it's a state that.
And can you get big? Have you tried to get bigger than it?
No, because I get initially freaked out by it.
Right. Because I mean, your blood sugar could be dropping, but I wonder if you could try getting bigger than all of it.
Yeah, like I guess I've never had a conversation with anyone to like figure it out. Like I love even Chris's perspective of like just riding it and just seeing
Yeah.
where it takes you and allowing that space and getting bigger. But because we do these, like there's so few of us who do this that it's not really anything that you can talk to anybody about except for here.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
to actually hear other people's perspective is reassuring.
Yeah.
And opens more doors to like practicing in general. So yeah, getting bigger is another way of dealing with it.
Yeah, because you're bigger than everything, right? Like I don't mean you, Carolyn, are bigger than everything, but we are essentially boundless. And if you can, so there's nothing that happens that you can't be bigger than. It's just something I do now intuitively, but yeah.
What a laboratory of practice, sort of bring that tool in, Nope. Wasn't a Phillips head, No.
I have a very basic question, I think. For me, this month have been like the most, what's been happening like with has been almost, it's it's my legs that's been shaking. I haven't had so much like, I don't feel so much tension in my upper body. Now, as I said before, this like this around the head, but I don't feel that so much when I do the standing as I think the sitting practice. So I guess I just, yeah, is that like, am I doing it right? I guess is that like, I don't know. It feels like I don't know if I'm just not strong enough in my legs, or is it just a way of like practicing the strength in the muscles also, or I don't know.
Yeah, anybody want to respond to that? Please.
I shook like a lot at the beginning. One time I was shaking so much I thought everybody could see me. Like I was like, it was just, but I just took it as a good thing. And so I didn't overthink it. I'm like, oh, because Corey, we discussed it. You're not the first to bring it up, and I remember I brought it up, and with time, it just I don't. Occasionally, I'll have some shaking going on, but again, I'm just like that's a good thing because it's like there's a lot of flow coming, and the body's just maybe not quite relaxed enough or to receive it yet, but it's just I find it's just like there's a lot of shaking before a volcano's gonna go, but then it goes kind of thing.
Yeah, it doesn't really bother me. Yeah, I was yeah, thanks. Just curious somehow, and if it's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all really interesting concepts like strength, what is that? What is strength? Is strength alignment? Is strength energy flow? Is strength like muscles? I think it's really interesting. It's a really good, interesting question. Like, what is it that we're doing with this, and what's really happening? And I think it's a really good question. Opening up to that, what is it actually that's opening or becoming stronger? Like, if my whole body is unified, that's a lot stronger than a body that's a bunch of pieces arguing. So it's interesting.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think with the shaking, it's really hard to like get any like sense out of it, and it's like from day to day it'll just be totally different. I mean, at least for me, and like during the intensive or mini retreat, I'm not sure you were there, but the first half my legs were like shaking so much I was like, I think I'm gonna fall down, and it felt like muscle pain. It wasn't like, oh, this is cool energy. It was just like, oh my God, why are my legs so tired? And then during the non-directed, my body sank back into the Janjuang posture, like the lower half. And strangely, all the like tiredness went away and my legs were like totally fine. And it's just like, I have no idea how that works. It's one of the crazy things about the practice. So I find, and I'm not sure this is actually helpful, but what I tend to do if I feel like there's this like distracting level of like my muscles are shaking on my legs, is I take that as a kind of an opportunity to play around with where the bubbling well is. Because I found sometimes, maybe I'm just a little, like just the tiniest bit back on my feet. And I didn't notice, except that my legs were shaking. And so I just kind of just bring my body just a little bit forward, like infinitesimally forward. And then it kind of locks in again or something. And maybe my muscles kind of settle a bit, or other muscles shake instead of the ones that had been shaking or something. It's just, like Corey, it's kind of a laboratory, but it just, yeah, I take that as an opportunity to really kind of, because my legs are so sensitive, then to really feel where is that structure happening, sort of. Um,
Corey, is that sweet spot you keep talking about?
It's like, the oldie station. You finally hit it. There's the oldies coming through, yeah, yeah. Weird. It can be so weird. Like, oh, there it is. Tune it in.
June, thank you so much. That I found my system just lighting up as you were describing that, and like appreciating it so much. Like finding that subtlety of it is so exciting. With the shaking, I'm also kind of sitting here reflecting. Sometimes it's like a sign of like cultivation of practice. So there can be like, oh, something's wanting to release, something's wanting to soften, something's wanting to relax and come through more. And then also I notice in me sometimes it's like, oh, I can take that as a clue. It's like opportunity. It's a clue that I ask myself then, oh, like, how have I been like moving my body through the world outside of this formal practice time? And it's like a going back and kind of opportunity to kind of like round the edges, not let there be these hard edges, let it be more seamless. And I'll find like, oh, it's like I sort of lost some attention or awareness, like I'm really softened and relaxing when I'm doing the standing. But then maybe there are other moments in my just day-to-day living where, oh, that thing is always tightening up and I haven't really tended to it. And so it can take me back to not like getting hard practicing all day long, but just becoming more aware of it and making little adjustments through the day. There can be some like habits and patterns that's pointing to.
Yeah, that brings me to another question, maybe that I have this job that's pretty much about sitting by the computer, and it would be interesting to hear people's like, it feels like it's the most difficult thing to work with when to bring the practice into that kind of work that's very heavy, if you can say it like that. Yeah, so if anyone who's has any recommendations or some good experiences.
I also work on a computer all day, and I use a standing desk, which took a while to get used to. But now I just stand all the time when I'm using the computer and then take breaks and sit down, which I think it's not exactly like a solution, but I think it helps because when I sit, it's much easier to just lose track of time and like not listen to when I've been sitting for too long. Whereas like when I'm standing, I kind of get feedback of my legs are getting tired or something. So yeah.
I also like practicing, like when I'm at my desk all day, setting a timer and getting up like every 25, 35 minutes and then doing practice for 5 minutes and just feeling what that feels like and then sitting back down. And it's funny how for me, I approach my work very differently after those 5-minute sort of qigong breaks.
I have a job where I'm active a lot, but I also sit a lot, and I'm in a car a lot because I drive 2 hours and a half to work and 2 hours and a half back home. So I'm always in a car. And so sitting's horrible for me, and I know it causes trouble. But I also sit an hour a day, meditation, and I sit in a chair. So what I did, and it was really, really helpful for me, was for like 15, 20 minutes every day when I was doing my meditation, I would actually do what's the posture where your hands are out in front of your heart?
Hugging the tree.
Hugging the tree, thank you. And your feet are on the ground. And I would do that sitting. And wow, you can do it longer, which is cool. And well, your feet are doing what they're supposed to do because you're so relaxed in the ground. And then my body started to figure out how to sit properly. And it helped me tremendously. It really helped me with my shoulders and my back too. But by doing that just a little bit, then when I would go to work and I'd be sitting in the chair, I could find it again, just like when you lean forward on your feet to find the bubbling well and to get that line, to get the hands to lift. It's the same thing, and you kind of learn how to sit properly. I'm not there yet, but it's helped a lot.
Love it.
Just going back to the talking of discomfort and sitting and being in discomfort, like normally when I sit, I say I'm going to do it for a certain period of time, and I stick to that and so on. And I've heard people say on sesshin, you know, when you feel pain, you know, just go into the pain, don't avoid it, like really stay with it, go with it, and so on. But actually, during this week, I was sitting and I was really uncomfortable. I had a pain on my backside. I don't know what it was, but it was really uncomfortable. And at some point, I said, no, I'm going to stop. I gave myself permission to stop, and it was fine. So I'm saying, like, maybe it's okay sometimes to say, yeah, I'm not going to do this right now. You know, I think I'll just stop. So maybe it's something to bear in mind. But it's also a kind of a new strategy for me, in a sense. Like, it's just be kind to yourself.
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Isn't that true? Like, some of us, you know, we would rather, like, you know, stand there and like turn into, you know, a ghost in pain than like actually relax or take care of, really, you know, feel, okay, I'm gonna, you know, take care of this. No, I'll kill myself here in pain rather than actually, you know. It's true. You know, it's interesting. So some of us are so eager, that eagerness to work so hard, and, you know, I'll do that, but no, really, you know, take care or something. No, that's hard. You know?
Actually, I have kind of, it's kind of like a basic thing, but when we do non-directed, I have a pain like you're talking about. It's annoying. It's actually here right now. And it's kind of a chronic, I've been dealing with it for a while. And sometimes in non-directed, it can make it worse, because even if I'm moving a lot in non-directed, it seems like it's like almost feels like bone on bone, like just compacted. And so I've been kind of playing with keeping a slight posture to avoid that jam up that happens in me, because it can, I mean, it'll go away after a few hours after, but do you know what I'm talking about though? Like, so non-directed's great and I've got the flow and I can feel everything going, but this one place just feels like I just can't get the room. And then I play with going right into it, which occasionally I can do, but sometimes it just makes it so much worse. Mm-hmm. So I'm not quite sure how to, I just keep playing with it, you know, but.
I think that's a really good question, a really interesting question. And I find the dialogue between the structured and the unstructured really interesting. And I think it's worth exploring that dialogue quite a bit. Like, I actually spent a a couple of years where I kind of just did non-directed, and I felt like I hit it in a kind of impasse with it. Like there were some things which I thought, well, screw it, I'm just going to let go, you know. And I found that there were certain things that certain holding patterns I would actually go into that they didn't start to resolve. So I think that it's worth, I think that's part of why I like the dialogue of both of the practices, is that the, like the Jamjong and whatnot, we are working to align the system in this different way. I think they do different aspects of the same thing, and they can really help each other. So that part that maybe there's a part that is in the midst of trying to open, and at a certain point it's not quite ready, and so then it kind of maybe it falls into this holding pattern. You know, the plane it can't land, it's flying around, you know. And so I like the Jamjong then can really help me kind of, okay, this gives me a different type of juice in there to get the system cooking that might make a leap. It might make some kind of leap, which then can perhaps that dialogue can then be nurtured and changing over time. But I did get into some holding patterns where I thought, oh, that isn't really changing. Or like I'll be standing there and that hip will just go into that place again. Shit, you know, it's just in that place and it isn't coming out. And so the Jamjong, I find, sometimes will give a little extra juice to that, and then it's able to kind of power out of that holding pattern. So you get I've had with the non-direct, you get a little bit of that, the bike tire gets a hole in it, and you kind of, okay, I'm not there, you're not kind of getting that coming back in the same way. So I like the dialogue.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's really interesting. The Lam Kam Chuan's teacher, let's see. So he's hiding now, but anyway, he's a dentist. Here he is. And so in this book, they talk about, I think it's this one, they talk about how he could work on so many patients a day. He would get up in between and do the Jamjong. I think that's really amazing. Like he had so much stamina because of that. I think that's really interesting. So he'd be sitting and working, and then he'd do the Jamjong. He could work on so many people because of that. I find that really interesting for us who will sit a lot, you know, maybe taking those little times to connect and, you know.
I have a very basic question. So I noticed recently, like when I'm just standing normally, I'll shift more onto my left side usually, and like my hip is like different. It like works a little different. I'm just like thinking I should try to even it out or like stay in the middle. Is that sort of a good approach, or like is there anything more to think about there?
Anyone want to respond to that?
I'm sorry, I missed part of the question. Did you say you're like sitting? Can you repeat the beginning part?
Yeah, just normal standing, like when I'm
Okay.
working or anytime. Like I'll just sink into my left hip, not my right one, like if I'm not paying attention. And I noticed there's kind of asymmetry. So I'm wondering if just balancing between the two sides is the best approach.
Yeah, I would say just that you're noticing it, and you know, not that there's necessarily, if you're just standing around during the day, I don't know that there's, you know, a right or a wrong way to stand around, but you're getting a kind of a sensitivity to feeling into what's going on, or maybe you weren't before, and just kind of exploring that and trying out, try out different, switch it up and see how that feels.
Yeah, I used to, well, like often I think, you're taught to stand kind of squarely on your 2 feet and a little bit forward on your feet. And so usually if I'm standing, I'm standing, or at least, if I'm present, I guess I'm standing that way. But interestingly, after doing some of this work, I noticed that kind of shifting my weight onto one foot or one side actually produced like new energy. Just like another way of like being like standing, and like sometimes you're like connecting to your central channel better in different ways. So like I think it's good not to be, like Gendula said, I think like kind of exploring it's important, but I think like what I would say is just like pay attention to like how your energy is manifesting or moving in different positions. Like if you're resting on your left hip and it feels kind of like that just is your kind of most like kind of chilling out state, then that to me seems like, oh, that's a good opportunity. Then shift onto both feet, kind of plant and feel the ground better or something.
Thank you.
I would go ahead, Kelly. Go ahead.
Well, I'm sure what you'll say will be better. I was just going to say this is a big thing for me. I have a hip turn, one hip forward. I never feel like my feet are both on the ground the same. I try really hard not to let that frustrate me. But when I do, I often move, and when I move, I'm not moving. There's just movement happening, and often it'll throw itself into one foot. And I let that happen. Well, first of all, you're always playing, so it's not one thing. But often I will let that happen and go into that foot, and with time, but relaxing the system and listening to all Corey's points. And then what'll happen is I'll kind of shift into the other one, or that side will kind of line up right. And then I'll move over to the other one, and then that one will kind of line up right. And then they kind of come together. But I'm constantly playing with that, and I don't always try to balance myself. I don't know, you can check, but I do notice when I stand, one thing I do is make sure my feet are both kind of in the same spot, like where they should be, because my hips are not aligned well. I do have a foot that likes to creep forward, and I'll look down and be like, what the heck? And I'll put my feet back straight. So at least I have that playing field, but I'm always playing with that. And I've had it where it completely all just aligns just beautifully, just by allowing. But yeah, I constantly play with that.
Yeah, interesting. I have a couple thoughts about this. One is that I don't believe in symmetry in the body. Like, I think that's a bad myth. Like, there's no symmetry. Like the idea that my one leg is going to match the other one, or my hip is going to match the other one. That's some kind of bad Instagram joke. You know what I mean? Or some bad misinterpretation of yoga, honestly. Everyone I see is asymmetrical, everyone, and that's the normal pattern. So we call that a typical random pattern. In classic kind of cultures, like in Greece, there's something called contrapposto, which means you're standing more on one leg. All the Greek statues are on one leg. You're more on one leg, and all the early Chinese stuff, Tai Chi, you're always on one leg more. So your weight is always in one leg more. This is better for fighting. Someone comes at you, if you're double weighted, they can knock you over. If you're more on one leg, you can pivot. So that's interesting. But so I love when the different cultures, they come up with the same thing. I love that. But another thing I think that through like the Jamjong and through our doing this, things will balance out more, and that's good. You know, but I wouldn't be afraid of being in one leg, standing in one leg and then going into the other leg. I personally love to lift my one leg up and explore what it's like to really give the weight to one leg and then stack through the body, through the bow waypoint, and see, okay, then that's when the root starts to really open up. Oh, okay, that's hard. So I think it's worth going for that and exploring both. Yeah, and I think also like what Genjo was saying, like being real curious about it also might reveal the body trying to actually harmonize in space. Like maybe the body is harmonizing in space if we give it the chance, and we're there unaware of what's happening and actually unconsciously blocking the system from opening, you know. So being more aware of it, more curious about it all the time might start to reveal that, oh, the body's actually trying to, the energy of the system, et cetera, of the room is all trying to harmonize if we give it the chance.
Corey, that's the spirit where I was kind of responding to it too, rather than being over eager to like sort of break that habit and like balance it out to symmetry, like just really first fully accepting it. And so letting the question become like, oh, if I'm always standing on this one leg, but how am I standing on it? And how can I stand on it in the best possible way? So maybe like a lot of times I'll be standing on one leg and like my habit is like my hip will always be kind of cocked out a little bit and collapsed. But just starting with, oh, well, okay, if I'm standing on that leg, how can everything come into alignment there? So, you know, maybe shifting like how I'm the foot, am I getting a little pronation there or supination, or is my knee cocked out? How can I go ahead and let myself stand in that way, but just in the best possible way?
So Corey,
Another way to play.
What was that?
Oh, I was gonna let Chris keep, I thought he was done. Sorry, Chris. Do you want to finish? No. Okay. So Corey, with you saying that, do you think if your feet want to be slightly different, you should let them?
The liver is huge, right? The liver, it's on the right side. It's humongous, right? The lungs are smaller on the right side. You know, the chest cavity is the. I think we can play with it, but also the body is not symmetrical. Like you know, the way the colon comes down on the left side, it comes diagonally from the back forward, and then it makes a big, huge turn and goes towards the anus. That's a huge difference. Then the right side is straightforward, colon coming up. There's not going to be symmetry there, you know. So there may be good balance, and I think going towards more balance, yeah. But and I think we should in our practices work on symmetry, but also there seems to be this. You talk about this notion of end gaining. Do you know this end gaining? It's when you have a goal, and that goal is there, and so you're constantly on that goal, so you can't feel what's happening. So many people are like that. So you know, you can't feel what's happening, and so anyway, I feel like being with it and letting it unfurl, perhaps. Maybe our feet are never gonna be quite symmetrical. Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah. Everybody, you know, and everybody comes in, I've got one leg that's longer than the other. God, I'm tired of hearing about that. You know, maybe you do a little bit, but but everybody does a little bit. And it may be just the colon, it may be this or that. And some people actually do have a real, but most people, there's a little sense of a shift in the pelvis. So, you know, it's pretty intense, this idea of symmetry. People get obsessed with that, you know? It's like, it's intense. Okay.
Yeah, maybe I could say something about that. So what I've kind of realized lately is that my body is always wanting to do what's best for it, even if that's kind of protecting a weak area and like we have this mindset that we have to fix, that we're going to fix something, we're going to do something, or we're going to fix it. But I think it's like Corey says in his blog, maybe it's just kind of me parroting, but if you're standing on one leg, like I do the same, and it's kind of just like what is happening with that standing on one leg. And something really interesting for me was in some of the Jamjong positions, like my shoulders were bunching up like mad tight during it, and I was going through this thing, oh, I shouldn't be doing that I should be relaxing. But there was kind of one day I just thought, yeah, screw it, I'll just see what's going on here. And it kind of felt like my shoulders were going up out of my head, and all of a sudden there was just this huge release up through my heart, and it was just the most loveliest thing. And if I hadn't have gone with it, it may never have, you know, if I'd resisted that. And I think that like there's so much wisdom in what the body's trying to do. So if it's one leg, or if it's kind of anything really, that's the most interesting thing to me, is that it's always trying to just be with the situation, and then we're there thinking, oh no, I need to stand like this or do this or that. And kind of the non-directed has been so beautiful for me, because you just kind of, I don't know what's going on, and it's actually the not knowing what's going on that is the most powerful thing, because there is something that knows what's going on whilst it doesn't know. It's kind of so yeah, that, and even at work, just to touch on the thing about work, I spend quite a lot of time sat in the chair, and like, it's just kind of interesting, like how we'll hold ourselves, or if you receive an email that it's kind of a little bit of conflict there or something, and you just kind of notice how you might tense. And it's kind of now, it's just always a chance to let go into any of the resistance that you feel in your body, or like even the resistance to, like, is it okay to stand on one leg? Like, you can stand however you want to stand, really. And just, I think that's been the thing for me, is just the body really knows what it wants to do, even if we don't really get it. And yeah, weird, but yeah, I thought I'd just share that.
I just want to say, I thank everyone for your comments today, because I just realized something pretty good, because I have pain in my hip, and I didn't realize, but I have an association that the pain in my hip is because I don't have symmetry, and that's what causes my pain. So I put myself in a little catch-22 there, and I just caught it. And that's why sometimes I totally goes away and it comes back. And anyway, this has all been very helpful, because I'm very not symmetry, even my nose, my eyes, like all of us, you know? So that's cool. I'm just gonna let myself be on symmetry for a while. I'm kind of excited.
I guess from my perspective too, in like slight contradiction, is you can be, you can hold bad habits, like unconscious bad habits too. Like I find myself, you know, sports injury comes from something like that, right? and you're talking about with Bill the other day about his son doing his deadlifting and being totally unconscious of how he's exerting force. And I think I find what Nat Ross is saying is true. But there's also moments where it's like, oh, I have no idea what's happening in my right leg, and I'm not standing on it at all. And the solution to a certain extent is just to go back to it and to give attention back to it as opposed to pulling it off. And it's, to a certain extent, it is correcting for asymmetry, but it's more correcting for not being aware of something.
One thing that has come to my attention recently in the just in the energy work and all that we do is that connections in the body, like, it's hard to put into words, but something will be going on here and then there'll be a little tweak somewhere. And I went, whoa, who thought that something way up at this end of the body could be affected by something way over there? And I'm just finding that really interesting. And as far as asymmetry goes, I've noticed that, I think even to do with your right-handedness or your left-handedness, or maybe you're ambidextrous, but for me, the whole right side of my body is completely different from the left. And I do a lot of stretching and working out, so I can see it quite clearly. So maybe the answer is that you don't really need to fix anything, but just notice it and I guess be with it. But I do find that connection where there's little tweaking here and there has become more obvious to me.
Love it. Hey, would anyone like to chime in who hasn't spoken? I'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear anything you'd like to add today.
Hey, Katja, I wanted to ask you how the month intensive has been. I was thinking back, we're in our final social hour for the month now, and I was thinking of our beginning when you were voicing some concern. I think, if I remember, about maybe the energy being too much, and I wonder how it's been.
What you actually said today about this window, I feel like the emotion thing is how to find this space and how the mental tension tightens this space. And excuse me for my English, it's difficult to speak in this language when you are native speakers, especially. Like,
how would you say it? How would you say it in your native language? Say it in your native language.
Przestrzeń, która wytwarza się w umyśle, jest tą przestrzenią, która sprawia, że moje ciało czuje się rozluźnione. So the space that is in the mind, that I don't try to manipulate, but the space where the mind is relaxed, it's the space where the body can adjust in the most relaxed way. So during this intensive, in the beginning, it was about the relating, in the middle, it was about the relating to the energy of the room. But now, like today, I felt like it was about the relating to the space in the mind. The body was adjusting to this place where it feels just comfortable and soft. So So these emotions actually I don't know yet about how about these emotions, but it's mostly from the trying to control this fight between body and mind, mostly. So that's all.
Really great. Good. Really great. Thanks for your comment.
Thank you.
Great. What else? Anyone else want to chime in, please?
I was just looking at Rhett's little box and wondering, Rhett, are you feeling better?
Actually, today is the better day. Like today is good. So we're set. Thanks for asking. I have no opinions on any of these topics, unfortunately. I have no idea what I'm doing. So here I am.
Great.
Sometimes I think having no idea what I'm doing is a good thing, especially when it comes to talking about the lower Dantian and all of that. And I was thinking, well, people talk about, well, that you can feel it more if you're here or there. And I'm thinking, actually, I don't feel it at all. And then I thought, well, but it has to be there because it can't come from nowhere. So if you can feel it sometimes, then it's always there. It's just, so I just say to myself, well, maybe you'll someday have this, like suddenly see this big ball and it'll, like, I can't remember who said it, that helped them get up the hill. And I thought, as I was walking up a hill, I thought I could use a little big ball right now to help me propel me up a hill. So I just, it's been what, 10 months, and I just do my thing. And but I really, if I wanted to get somewhere with it, I would be totally discouraged. So, but I do know, one thing I do know from this practice, and I saw a 10-minute video, where he was standing like this. And he says, if you start your day like this, you will be more relaxed and calm and you'll have energy. And it is so true. I can be really tired. I didn't get enough, well, what I think is enough sleep. And then I do that and suddenly, it's good. So the benefits of this practice are so obvious in just daily life that I don't worry about the rest of it.
Love that. Thank you.
I just want to say that a big thing for me through the month was this, well, what was very helpful was this idea of, staying back, not reaching out in some of the poses and postures. I was really aware of just staying back. It's a really big thing for me, I guess, because in kind of daily life and life situations, I think I kind of give away my power sometimes, well, a lot, and sometimes that's not good. It's really, to just be in your body, I suppose, to put it simply like that. And a while ago, I noticed it's the 7th position with the Eightfold Brocade. It's just very simple, the movement of the hands. But when I was doing that, I really was staying back, staying in my body, even though the hands were going forward. And at some point I had this sense that it seemed like I wasn't putting my hands forward, my hands were being received. It was like, it was like the room was receiving my hand, or the space receiving it and then returning it. And I felt really in my body and present, and I thought that was really, I was happy about that. So that was a big thing for me, this, staying back, being in your body and not not being pulled out, you know. That's, yeah.
Love it. Love it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we gotta head out to do our thing. Great to see everyone. Thank you so much.
Can I just ask one quick question, like about the practical stuff?
Yeah.
Like what happens after this intensive? I will probably like check in March again because I will go away in February and so. But is like what's part of the intensive and what's part of like the normal schedule? What's the difference?
Well, there will still be the same classes. So there's still 5 plus the student class. So 6, including that per week. It's the pass for it is for the month is $120 for the price, but it's obviously if you can't do that, we wouldn't turn anyone away. But we won't have the 4 social hours like this, which I find them to be really helpful. And also, I think people just aren't quite cooking. They're not quite saying, I'm going for it in this way and so there's a little bit of it's a little quieter in that way. I think people do the rooms still. So please go into rooms and turn on a room and tell everyone. We'll have a separate Energy Collective ongoing group that will turn that back on. Right now we're in this January intensive one, but we'll put that onto the ongoing Energy Collective group. And then and then you can go into a room. I'm going into a room and whatever, Genri will pop in there with you or me or whatever, and whoever's around. And so it's slightly less, the volume's slightly less high and there's less of a commitment and there aren't the social hours, but still doing the classes and it's still fantastic, I think. So yeah. I think that consistency is very, very important with this stuff, you know? So I think doing it, oh, I like doing this, it was nice. And then I didn't do it for a while, and then I did it again. I think that's okay, but the consistency of doing it all the time, it does create a cellular change that I think is noticeable. Yeah. Cool. Did I miss anything? No.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, yeah, great. Okay, and we will also have a mini intensive in February also. So we'll have one weekend where we do the 2 2-hour classes, and somehow those are just fantastic. People really like those. So yeah, okay, all right. Well, let's. I've got class, the non-directed, is at 2 today, and 2 my time, and then we've got just like rooms for the next couple days for the final. And I'll be in rooms, I'm sure, tomorrow and the next day. Thank you. See ya.